In this Deconstructed video, I take a track-by-track look at the making of my song, Killing Time. Let's jump in and take a closer look. The song was recorded using GarageBand on Mac OS, and it has an unusual structure in that it's made up of just 6 verses. The central motif of this song revolves around the sound of a shovel digging into the earth. I stood outside at 10 PM at night in the middle of winter recording myself digging in the garden. I used an acoustic scratch guitar track to sort of set the pace and keep the time, and this sound then became my hi-hat sound. It starts off quite random, and then I gradually move it into the actual beat. You can actually hear in the background the sound of traffic. We've got a motorway fairly near our house, and you can sort of hear a few cars. In the background also are some birds tweeting. I wanted it to sound as though someone was in the middle of a forest digging a hole, and that was where the song started, with that very imagery, and I built a story around that picture that I had in my mind. Lots of reverb on these bird vocals, and spoiler alert, the birds are actually just me whistling into the microphone. I wasn't sure where to get a bird recording from that was nice and clean, so I simply just whistled and chirped into the microphone, and that's what you have now. I also added a basic kick drum to round out the beat of the song. The kick drum I used on the track is the Liverpool kit. Just keeping me honest. Towards the middle of the song, it steps up in pace. Almost like a heartbeat.
Feel my guilt embrace me like the twist of...
Moving into the second verse, and I introduce an experimental guitar. This is the amp simulator condensator, and sounds a wee bit like this on its own. That provides a wee bit of ambience under the verses.
On a perfect day, smothering the embers of a long neglected flame. Will it wash my sins away?
I used 2 acoustic guitars on the track, a Carlos acoustic and an Applause acoustic, just panned left and right. The Applause acoustic is a shallow body guitar, so it has a slightly higher tone than Bacalus acoustic, but blended they seem to work quite well together. I also added a 12 string to the track, but didn't really like the sound. Here's the 12 string on its own. It would probably have been fine, but then I found a cool new plugin called Tape Cassette 2. This adds a different sound of an old tape cassette. In this case I chose warm vibrato, but there are lots of different settings, as you can see, that you can choose from. Here's how it sounds with tape cassette on. The Tape Cassette 2 plugin gave the guitar a drone-like warble and, to my ears, added some extra tension to the song. Moving through the track, and we get to our bass guitar. The bass guitar is a fairly simple wee riff that I developed.
Just say that you were.
The bass guitar is fairly well cut up, and it's not perfect. There are a few clicks and pops in there, I admit. However, when coupled with the shovel, you don't really notice them in the mix. Moving further into the song, I added some percussion for the last 3 verses. This just uses the studio percussion kit, and on its own sounds like this. In the background you can hear an argument, so this was definitely really good fun to do. I basically recorded myself yelling, adding in the sound of a cutlery drawer being slammed closed, the clasp of a case, as well as some orchestral thumps. So these are the tracks that make up the argument.
Get out now. Hey! Oh! Get out!
As you can see, it's just me horsing about, really. This is the clasp. That's the clasp of a guitar case, if anyone was wondering. Then I have the sound of the cutlery. And in behind that are some fairly heavy thumps on the orchestral kit. Some of the drums that are available. Underneath that I've got a guitar solo. It's not the greatest guitar solo, but certainly just added to that. the vocals. I made up a master track from about, these are my vocal takes at the bottom here. There's probably about 10 vocal tracks that I did, and I basically cut them up, took the best of them, and created my master vocal track. The vocals themselves are relatively straightforward. Killing time on a perfect day, I'm just thinking of you. Just a little bit of tape delay in there to add some echo to the track. From a backing vocal perspective, very light for me as far as backing vocals are concerned. For the most part, it's just two main backing vocal parts, neither of which I don't think are particularly sung very well. But let's have a listen. There's a storm approaching, killing time. Feel my guilt embrace me like the twist of a tourniquet. Just say that you were with me, and I will say the same. The backing vocals expand to 4 for the final verses. Killing time on a perfect day, I'm just thinking of you with the hood upon my face. One last time to breathe in. I added in a snare drum towards the end of the song to add a little bit more urgency to that final part of the song. There's a little bit of cymbal in there as well. Coming into the final verse, I wanted to add a few extra snare hits just to accentuate the build for this final part of the song. And that's all just done using some MIDI notes, using the same kit, and just building up the song with those. And I think somewhere in the background there's some chimes going off as well, and I'm pretty sure that's on the percussion track. And that brings us to the end of the song. The song ends abruptly on purpose, a wee bit like the life of our protagonist, as indicated in the last couple of lines of the final verse. So that is a deconstruction of my song Killing Time. I really hope you found this useful, and thanks very much for watching.